Welcome back to Wolf Guitars and Gear, where we help you get fat tones from a skinny wallet. Today I kind of want to tackle something that I'm seeing on social media that kind of bothers me, to be honest. If you're anything like me, the algorithm notices that you're a guitar player. Next thing you know, you start getting all these reels and shorts of these guys just flying all over the fretboard, doing all this sweet picking, playing a million notes a minute. And I know that for a lot of beginners that can be intimidating. Just going through the comment sections on those videos, you'll start to notice that a lot of the players who are at a more beginner stage will, they're looking up to these guys because obviously that's a skill that's developed over time, but a lot of them get to the point to where they feel like they shouldn't even pick up the guitar anymore. And to me that's a terrible outcome for those videos. And so today I want to talk about why speed is not the most important piece of your playing. I think it is a tool. As I said, it is a skill that you develop over time, and I don't think you shouldn't work on it. Definitely you should, but I think it needs to be kept in balance with the rest of your playing. So let's go and take a look. I'm going to link to a Guitarcom article where they talk to many pro guitar players. Here's what some of them had to say. Kerry King from Slayer said, "How long can you watch Steve Vai or Joe Satriani? They're as good as guitar players as you're going to find anywhere, but I'd get bored of them in like 25 minutes. And sure, maybe that style isn't for everybody, but what about like Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple? He said this, "I can't stomach too many guitar players who just play these non-stop incessant runs. It gets crazy. It's just exercises. There has to be a reason for soloing. Usually guitar players who play that fast and put everything they can into solos are insecure. The more sophisticated and mature guitarists become, the more they go with the feel." And man, I couldn't agree with that quote anymore. To me, that's what those videos are. It's just somebody getting online and showing off, hey, look how fast I can play. Look at me, I'm so awesome. But the truth of the matter is that they may not be saying anything, even though they're playing a million notes per minute. And I think it's far more important to learn how to play with feel. Let's give you maybe a different example. Let's say that you're trying to pick a narrator for a film. Who's going to be a better narrator for that film? Is it going to be an auctioneer who can rattle off a million words per second? All kind of monotone. Here we go, there's one. No, you're not going to want that for that. Who are you going to want to narrate a film? You're probably going to want somebody like Morgan Freeman, who speaks slowly, clearly, enunciates his words, and speaks with emotion that helps convey the message of that movie. And it's the same thing with music, because music is a language, and sure, when you're playing fast, you are still speaking that language, but the thing is, you're doing it so fast that a lot of those notes don't come through with really any kind of impact that move your audience. And it goes so fast that people can't actually latch onto anything. There's no hook there for them to have any effect from those notes, because there needs to be a reason for those notes. And so I think that's something that gets missed. Another thing that really gets missed is something we're going to address here in a second too. Here's a few more quotes. David Gilmour, when he was asked about shred guitar players, says, yes, and where are they now? There aren't many of the speed merchants that have any curiosity about." And then he's talking about Eddie Van Halen. He says, people like that are not just about speed. He can do a bit of something that's quite gentle and then throw in something that just blows you away because of the sheer pace of it for a second. And then he goes back to something else. So again, it's about using speed, but using it correctly and not all the time. He also talks about Jeff Beck, and I love this quote too. Gilmour says about Jeff Beck, "Jeff can play damn fast, but he chooses not to most of the time, and that's what impresses me. It's what he chooses to leave out than what he chooses to stick in." And that's an important musical concept as well, is negative space. It's not about filling every subdivision of every note that's possible inside that time signature. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And I think what's more important is that we learn how to use the time and space of a song to convey a message, to convey a feeling, to really communicate with the audience. That's what I think is a more important skill. Let's move to a different genre. George Benson, famous jazz guitar player. And he was talking about how when he started, he used to play super fast. And then he ran into another jazz icon, Wes Montgomery, and this is what Wes said about George Benson. He said, boy, when he slows down, he's going to be a real monster. See, sometimes I think speed can get in the way of you actually saying something meaningful. And this is what George Benson said later on. He said that when music is being played at such fast tempos, it goes by like a blip. It just goes right through them. There's nothing they can hang on to. When Charlie Parker plays, you can always hear the melody. The song never left you. When he played Just Friends, you can still hear the song through all that beautiful, stunning playing. And I think that's super important. You got to keep the whole of the song in place. And speed, like I said, it's a tool, but it shouldn't be the end-all, be-all. And I think that overall, conveying that message, speaking that language, slowing down, having a meaningful melody, something that's catchy, that people can comprehend and latch onto, something that gets stuck in your head for days, that's way more effective than sitting there playing 1,000,000 notes per minute. Just my personal take. Here's another one. And again, this is a guy who can play super fast, Paul Gilbert. This is what he says. He says, a scale is a group of notes, and there's so much more to music than a note. Feel is a combination of dynamics, and dynamics is huge. You wouldn't believe how many guitar players do not use any dynamics. It's just about a big section of loud and then a big section of soft. And it's a constant up and down of different tones, volume, spaces, filling up stuff, and it makes a huge difference. And that alone can separate the amateurs from the pros. So again, when you start thinking about some of these techniques for speed, one of the things that's inherent to that type of playing when you're shredding is to make sure that certain notes don't just jump out at you, that they're just, everything is fairly even, so that you have the speed that is what's sticking out and not certain notes. You want to keep everything more or less flat, but what that does is it leads to this lack of dynamics that he's talking about here. Paul Gilbert, like I said, he can shred with the best of them, and I think that that's an important thing to look at here is that the dynamics of the song, it has to fit, it has to say something, and so something that another guitar player that I think is really great. Again, he's a pro guitar player. He's played on many important sessions, played on a lot of the songs that you probably know and have listened to, is Tim Pierce. And I'm going to link to his video up here, so make sure that you check that out. And he's going to give several tips on soloing. And one of the things he talks about is that he likes to use bursts of speed. You know, you start off slow, and then you throw in a couple really fast phrases and come back down and go to a different method of expressing, and it really creates something very dynamic and something very powerful, because when you use something sparingly, it sticks out far more than when it's the key element. So that's something else to keep in mind. There's another article that I'm going to link to as well, and it's through Breakthrough Guitar. It has a lot of great things to read in there, and so I would highly encourage you to follow those links and to read it to get more on it. But I think hopefully you're beginning to see what I'm saying, that I would much rather see all of you become a much more developed guitar player and have a whole repertoire and a whole toolbox at your disposal. I mean, if you just think of all the different ways that you could play one single note. I mean, you can just hit the note with a finger. You could hit it with a pick. You could hammer onto it. You could slide into it. You could start off with it bent and de-bend into the note. You could do it the other way. You could start at the note below it and bend into it. That's just a couple examples of some different ways that you could play just one single note. And so when you start applying that type of thinking to the whole of a solo, suddenly it's not all that important to be the fastest or to wow somebody with your speed. I think something else that's really important too is to pay attention to the way that your notes can create chord extensions and can just create a little emotional hook. And that's what I look for when I'm trying to put together a solo, is to try to find that perfect note that just tugs on you. And without that one note being there, that solo line wouldn't be what it is. And so that's just my approach. That's my 2 cents on the matter. I'd really like to hear all of your thoughts on how important speed is and what you think is important for yourself as you're developing. And I'd also like to think and hear from the community here as far as how do these videos, when people are showing off like that, how does that impact your mental health? How does that impact you as far as your self-worth as a player when you're looking at somebody who's showing off like that? How does that make you feel? Does that inspire you, or does that perhaps make you want to pull back and feel like you're not good enough and that you'll never be on that level? Again, just my thoughts. Get in the comments and let me know what you think. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you get future episodes. If you want to get some of my fractal presets, they're for sale. The link is going to be below in the description, so make sure you check that out. And thank you guys for stopping by here at Wolf Guitars and Gear, where we help you get fat tones from a skinny wallet.